You counted your sands? Are you positioned to be judging? To be judging. Have you counted your sins? Time to position. Who should be judging? Who should be judging your real sin, your real life, your real right to the path, to the light, to what's right, to what you need an eye for your life. What you thought that you fought for and bore with your deeds and your greed and your need for success in this life. In this life. In this life, in this life, gotta fight for what is right. In this life. In this life, in this life, for have you counted your sins? The countenances in. Who should be judging? Who should be judging? Oh, time to count your sins. Are you positioned? Who should be judging? Who should be judging your real sin, your real life, your real right to the path, to the line, to what's right, to what you need an eye for your life. what you thought that you fought for and bought with your deeds and your greed and your need for success in this life. In this life, in this life, in this life, fight for what is right. In this life, in this life, in this life, oh, time to count your sins. The countenances end. Who should be judging? Who should be judging? Oh, have you counted your sins? The arguments are in. Who should be judging? Who should be judging? There you go, 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 there you go. There you go, 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 there you go. There you go, there you go, there you go, don't you know, now you're born the Voyager, ripping through time and space to lyrically destroy ya. Ain't got no time and space, this shit goes supernova. Ain't got no time and space to, ain't got no time and space to, there you go, 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 there you go. There you go, there you go, there you go, don't you know, now you're born the Voyager, ripping through time and space to lyrically destroy ya. Ain't got no time to waste, this shit go supernova. Ain't got no time and space to, ain't got no time to waste to, there you go, 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 there you go. There you go, there you go, there you go, don't you know, now you're born the Voyager, ripping through time and space to lyrically destroy ya. Ain't got no time to waste, this shit go supernova. Ain't got no time and space to, ain't got no time and space to, there you go, 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 there you go. There you go, there you go. You don't even know. You don't even know. The same old wrong. The same old wrong. The same wrong. The same wrong. The same wrong. You take the same road. Don't even know which way you go. girls, you take the same road. Don't even know which way it goes, which way it goes, and all through the night, waiting on a call, the ending sign will make it through it all, and every single night, even when they call, you don't even know. You don't even know. The same old road, the same old road, the same road, the same road, the same I'm a fucking Frankenstein. If you wanna stare, that's fine. Just remember when you look into my eyes, I feel your mind. If you wanna stare, honestly, that's fine. Just remember that I can feel your mind. I can feel your mind when you stop to take the time just to look into my eyes and to feel that vibe. Feeling that vibe at the time. Trying to make up my mind. What are we dealing with here? So real now, right in front of me now. Feeling that vibe at the time. Trying to make up my mind. What are we dealing with here? So near now, right in front of me now. Feeling that vibe at the time. Oh, I'm a fucking Frankenstein. If you wanna stare, that's fine. Just remember when you look into my eyes, I feel your mind. If you wanna stare, honestly, that's fine. Just remember that I can feel your mind. I can feel your mind when you stop to take the time just to look into my eyes and to feel that vibe. Feeling that vibe at the time. Oh. So I'll pause there to say, when I make these songs, my process, it's kind of different in a way. I'm not saying it's that different. So I think a lot of people kind of work this way, but it's kind of like iteration, loops, and really, that's kind of why some of these, GIFs, I prefer that pronunciation. GIFs for me are kind of like an interesting way, to think about it, right? Because something I return to a lot, I'm
educated in computer science, even if technically I don't have my degree finished yet, but it will be soon. And honestly, recursion is such a fundamental aspect of programming. You know, that you might write a function that calls upon itself again, and a lot of these songs are kind of written that way. They're kind of they're not really double meaning. It's certainly not double speak. In fact, if anything, the opposite. Some of the lyrics, if there is, a lot of them, like this one in particular, are really, it's just the alliteration. It could be frickin' Frankenstein. It doesn't have to be the F word, but I'll be honest, it kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit better. And, to be, I guess, what's the best way to say it? I like songs that kind of make you think, and so a lot of these lyrics is kind of like you sing, the verses are kind of bringing attention to you. You look at things a lot of times, and I think we tend to look at things a little bit too polar, right? So you hear it one way, and it's like, oh, you're like, one of them is you're trying to make up your mind, right? And then the other one is I'm trying to make up my mind, right? And it's like, we're both kind of that's the thing. Nobody can actually read anyone's mind. That's actually the point. Is you're not able to do so, and so it's kind of encouraging and thinking about that. You actually have to kind of look beyond the obvious. We're all facades at the end of the day. That's why in some ways I'm really adamant about this. We get caught up on external experiences and external appearances, and honestly, to me, I think that it's just really important that we keep some of these things in mind. Anti-gatekeeping could apply in a lot of different ways, but in general, I think to me it just means, especially with technology, there's a lot of uppityness, in my opinion. I'm not trying to cast shade on anybody. I just feel like you can refer to this in a lot of ways. You can talk about sort of the attitudes that women deal with in STEM. You can talk about the attitudes that people have about in some environments with software. They sort of want to sit on what they're good at and not really share that information, and that's kind of the opposite of how I've always felt. I feel like doing this type of technical work, it's kind of misleading. Even I'll be honest, the term internal technologies, right? All of this can kind of sort of fall under that umbrella, but IT sounds, well, a lot of people sort of cast shade on IT work, and that's sort of why it's and it is worth noting, my job is always more of this DevOps, it was cloud services. I can add to this list, right? But cloud engineering, this kind of stuff, it's really more programming, to be honest with you, and some of it is more difficult programming than just learning, one language and writing that. As an engineer, I'm not trying to be mean to any engineers, right? But in all fairness, a lot of engineers really do not like this type of work, because it's there's so many things that can break easily. There's so many things that, to be honest, you kind of, what's the best way to say it? It really is. It's about iterations. It's iterative always. And you kind of have to plan for failure at all times. I'm not, again, it's no veiled thing when I say that. You kind of have to always, okay, we're going to build this. And that's part of this whole idea with streaming, right? Is I wanted to present this concept to people that, don't be, there's contexts in which you need to be really mindful and careful, of course. And production environments are one of those, right? But don't be, afraid of trying. You got to set up the environment so that you can fail quickly to learn. You can't learn without failing. In fact, that's kind of the whole thing. One of the songs that I've not really put back in the computer yet, the title of the song was "Failure is a Ladder to Success," and I really mean that. In fact, I could put that quote probably on here, maybe underneath.
Peace. Stomp my head till your foot bleeds.
And I feel really strongly about that, because I'll be honest, if you start learning programming, you're going to be so frustrated and oh my gosh, some things you're just looking at it, you're tired, and it's late at night, and you're trying to figure out how this works and why is this not working, and it has to be done, right? And it's oh my goodness, for me it's kind of a nuance, really involved, It's not even just that context, I guess. It's kind of it was extra worse context, and I still was doing the best that I could in that context. I ran into a few car accidents and other stuff, and I didn't have a stutter before that. It gave me really bad headaches and migraines, and since then it's kind of been a real challenge. I've definitely just embraced this concept. It's almost kind of funny to me. It stands for Born Again Shell, right? It's like what BASH stands for. And it's kind of funny because BASH is like you're going to want to bash your head on the keyboard sometimes. You're like, why is this not working? Like, but you're born again. You got to rest on it, and the next day, like, think about it more. BASH can be, in my opinion, it's not that bad, actually. In fact, it's just when you first start learning BASH, I could pull up, some examples. I'm not even going to try to type them out right now. I can, honestly, honest to God. But that's the other thing I will say is that, for me and a lot of people, I would say, like, you start working in the industry, you have to learn things for school so that you can show them on an exam. There's no question. But in the industry, you're always having access to the internet. And that's a part of what you're building. You're looking up things as reference. And so my memory is really good, quite frankly, but it's not, the same as, like, for example, I will say first off, if somebody gave me a contest where it's just like simply by procedural memory, you need to be able to, learn the syntax of this programming language really quickly. Well, people would beat me at that, there's no question. But in terms of learning things really quickly, and basically the way my brain works for this kind of stuff is pointers, kind of like in C++, like you're referencing other things, like you're actually using almost kind of like the concept of information hiding in computer science, right? You're realizing when you get into this kind of stuff with like DevOps and cloud services and all this, like if you try to tell yourself you need to learn every piece of syntax or everything as you go, then you're never going to be able to do any of it. And I think that's the hard part to convey to people, the nuance of that, which is that like you have to be able to kind of, what's the best way to say it? I want to be both encouraging and just like, here is kind of, remember, failure is the ladder to success. In order to move in that direction, you kind of just got to start. And sometimes I think that's what's, about the uppityness that bothers me is I think there's a lot of people that end up forcing people away from careers in technology or learning about technology, especially things like Linux and, working on a terminal, because when it comes down to it, like, this is really easy to kind of throw in people's faces and act like you're really, cool and good at it and, work really fast on a terminal, which a lot of people can do, myself included, I'll be honest, when I'm like really going at it. But that's also the thing, to speak of in this context. If you're forcing someone to lack for, well, what's the best way to say it without, this is like, I'm not going to be online too much longer because I'm definitely going to go to bed, but I am on the autism spectrum, right? And so for folks on the autism spectrum, I'm definitely on, the higher functioning end, but it shouldn't even matter in a way. I think that's a big old topic I'm going to be talking about a lot more in the future. The honest to God truth is that there is kind of this mixed bag with this. In my opinion, you start learning this actually makes it easier to understand programming, because you're looking at things through a different lens altogether. You start thinking about computers and operating systems in a different way. And that's kind of what I'm trying to encourage people to think about, is that, well, to get really comfortable working on a Linux terminal, it is really challenging at first. It's going to be really frustrating at times. But first of all, just the basics. People making very front and center for you the basics of some of the simple things. Even using arrows to go up. What was that last command that worked really well, right? And using your history to look through like what commands you've used. All of it. It's kind of like learning how to right click in Windows. Like sounds dumb, but. All of it going through your control panel in Windows when you're troubleshooting a problem, right? Windows, obviously, I'm running Windows 11, and in my opinion, it's great so far. But like, really, I mean it when I say that this type of stuff, it actually, I think it makes it easier for us to understand computers in general. And then on top of that, the other thing to me is like understanding that, well, computers do all think in ones and zeros, right? These are all the permissions, for example, and a lot of people know that. But this looks like gibberish, right? And I'll be honest, I always have to pull up a reference. I'm not saying like that's not the kind of thing I couldn't. If you needed to test me on this, I could study it really quickly and be like, okay, this is how it goes, right? But I'm saying is like, I'll be honest, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with some of the things. There's so much information with computers and technology. That's kind of the problem. You can't. What's the best way to say it? You're never going to be done learning. I think it's the best way to say it. Actually, that's one of the biggest. That's another quote to put on here.
even when they call. You don't.
Because to be honest, that's kind of part of my worldview as well, not just with technology. Like, I really genuinely feel like you can't ever convince yourself that you need to know in life. The moment that we do that, this kind of comes back to being a logician. It's kind of like a slippery slope, because you're already starting on the wrong foot. If you're just like, I'm done, I've got, and again, it's no offense to any, I really don't even like saying this, so I'm not going to say it that way. I was going to kind of mention, sometimes I think, well, speaking of gatekeeping, sometimes degrees can be used a little bit in that way, right? To gatekeep people from certain jobs or certain environments. But in all fairness, I want to, that's probably a separate topic for me to speak to, because to be honest with you, I can't really give a simple summary in that. I understand why some companies and people want the degree, right? But I've even had it stated to me in a job interview, for example. Somebody was like, and I wasn't mad at them for this. I told him, I was very unfiltered in my response at this point. I was just like, and this is what happened, is basically I was talking to somebody about a really technical job that sounded actually, perfect for me and what I do. And, I think he was just being honest. He was like, well, this job pays around, I think it was 80, maybe. I could be wrong, 75 or 80. It was pretty decent, right? And honestly, like, in my opinion, that's more than pretty decent, I guess I will say, in all fairness. Because that's what I said to this man. He was like, well, I noticed you don't have a degree, and so you're kind of not qualified. This position pays. I do have a little bit of a stutter. I should put that. It's likely multiple sclerosis I have, but I do have a neurological disability that sort of developed further after that severe car accident. I shouldn't say further. It's like I had some mild health problems, and then suddenly I had stutter and immense migraines and headaches and all this terrible stuff. Quite frankly, neuropathy in my hands and feet and arms and legs and all this shit. But in this job interview, I just said to this man, I was like, look, pay me half of what you're offering. like really, and I wasn't even trying to convince him, actually. I wasn't even saying pay me half and give me the job. I said to him, I was like, you know what, I would just consider, instead of saying that you're not going to hire people because they don't have a degree and that's the salary and where it's set. How about you cut the salary by 30 grand? Really? And I'll be honest with you, I can run circles around some of the people that you're looking at that would do, would have on paper the same quote qualifications that you're looking for. I'm not trying to sound arrogant when I say that, but that's what really is abundantly obvious to me. When you work in tech, like, people have different opinions about how you get to know a potential employee, for example, or what they're capable of doing. And in my opinion, that's actually a big part of what I want to cover with this brand, is that, you kind of got to sit with people. And in my opinion, you can't just throw a couple questions at them. You actually, it depends on the context, right? You can't always just sit down and have a long 2-hour, code session or, talking about technology. But that's what's actually interesting to me. I'll be completely honest with you. I think that in real conversation, if you're having extended, long-form dialogue, you can actually learn more information just by asking people questions, even than being like, write this code, you know what I mean? And sometimes that is going to be intimidating for other people in tech to hear me say that, but it really shouldn't be, because what I mean to say is just that, like, asking people questions, it's almost kind of like a Turing test, right? You're just like, what's your actual, what's the logician part of your brain? That's like the root level logic, right? In some ways, like, I'll put that here, because to me, like, that's what you're looking for. You want people that, in all of these, especially software as a service environments, you need, walking into it, you're spending an immense amount of money to train people. You're spending an immense amount of resources to get people, ready to even work in that environment, to understand the infrastructure, to understand what the technology stack is. And the truth is that, like I'm saying with, you're never done learning, is that, to be honest, any job you walk into, that's kind of the point. You're not just never done learning in your personal skill set. every single time you walk into a new job, it's like you're exponentially adding, at least for the beginning especially, right? That's one of the things that's always seems strange to me. It's like when people have domain knowledge in a software as a service environment, it doesn't necessarily make them more technical or more capable, or a better programmer or a better DevOps engineer or a better Linux engineer or any of these kind of things. It's kind of misleading in some ways. I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm not speaking about any past like coworkers. Honestly, when I say that, I'm actually not. I'm saying that I've made the observation that some people, I think, don't take that. It's kind of like you have to force yourself to think back to before you had any knowledge about how things worked around here. And that reminds me of Steve Jobs in some ways, who is definitely kind of a huge influence for me in things like design and his mindset about computing in general. Is that he was really adamant about we're smart engineer types, and even if he was not really, right, he was more of a what do you even call him? That's what's kind of difficult, right? It's like, what was Steve Jobs? Maybe that's a good way to even how do you define what he technically was? A marketing genius? Was he a product genius? That's actually on the list here for me, for sure. I definitely am into design. In my opinion, much more important things. When I say trying to, I guess that's the thing. I do actually kind of engineer new products, but I've just never had a lot of resources or time or money. I realize that's what resources means, but I mean to say that and what I want, and someone like Steve Jobs was really adamant about. Take off that hat for a moment, that what you know. And that there's a term for this that I'll have to go look up, and I'll probably add it to this list. Especially when folks are that as a group. There's a form of bias when we learn a lot. I had a college professor that talked about this a lot. There's a form of bias once we are really educated. Righting some wrongs. He was, of course, referring to computer science and technology. But when it comes down to it, it's like we can't really easily, at least, sort of remember that once we know a bunch of information on a certain topic, it's kind of difficult. It's actually really difficult for us to remove that bias. For example, when we're showing someone how to do something like on a Linux terminal, part of what's challenging for me is if I'm speaking like right now, right? This is the title of the stream. I realize is bizarre. I'll give more context about that as time goes on. And again, I'm brand new to Twitch, definitely not brand new to computers, but. I will say that when you are trying to teach someone something, that's where I feel like you have to go into a certain mode almost. You're not changing your personality, right? But you're kind of like, okay, you're using psychology, right? You're actually saying like, okay, what is your level of, you said that again, that's what's complicated. I'm not really even necessarily just referring to like hiring employees, but just teaching someone how to do something, right? Like how to navigate So I can do a CD, which stands for change directory, and then I hit tab, and now I'm in here. But see, for a lot of people, that's like, okay, wait, now I have to remember CD every time, right? In my opinion, once you do it a bunch, it's not difficult. You got the arrows, you got history commands, all that kind of stuff. We also have recursive search, which is really useful. You can just start typing, and that's awesome. Right? But then one of the things I think that definitely always throws people off about a terminal is that it isn't, necessarily, it doesn't tell you everything like as you're doing it. There's a lot of things you'll have to Google. And for example, like even when you just run a few commands, a lot of people I think they're thrown off like, okay, why is this?
I know.
And then like ls
You
need
more.
as like an ll.
You need
you
fallen.
And that's one of the coolest things about the way that the terminal is all wired up. Everything is like a pointer and a shortcut to something else.
Need
the
more.
Kernel at the end of the day. That's part of what I still, of course, I'm learning more about. Speaking of, never stop learning, right? But really, it's like you get to start looking at real cyber concepts every single bit of that is really tree. Because, honestly, from the very silicon up in these computers, like that's what real hackers are looking at. They're trying to find a way in. They're trying to find, a way to get root level access, how to elevate permissions, and all of that kind of stuff. It's really complicated, and it can move really quickly, especially if they're kind of an in mode or whatever. And so I guess it's weird to say it this way, but part of the reason that I feel so adamant about helping educate people about working on Linux is that, well, I'll be honest, I don't mean to say it in a way that sounds scary, but cyber is the future of security. In some ways, it's the future of war to some extent. Like, it really honestly is. Quite frankly, we need people in the United States to be learning these concepts. Genuinely, that's one of the things. This looks, overwhelming, but you learn this from a young age, even in my opinion. I was not that young, in my opinion, when I started learning this. I was around 15 the first time that I started working on a terminal ever, and when I did, it certainly was not like this. That's the thing. It takes time, but everybody learns at a different pace, and some people are going to learn those kind of concepts really quickly. And what I'm saying is this is the future. Linux is something that's always going to be for the foreseeable future. It's like the wiring in between everything else in our infrastructure. All of the networking gear, all these physical appliances that we have to interface with in a job like I have, all of these different devices that are, kind of in between, and then you also have cloud services where, I'll be honest, what I love about GCP, for example, was just that they always have the terminal. This sounds weird, but it's like, I'll be honest, for me, a lot of times, and this is kind of a mixed bag, right, because I'll be honest, some hacker dudes, they broke some stuff in GCP, and again, I'm not even just trying to cast blame or whatever. It's just what the hell? I'm so confused, you guys. Breaking out of containers in GCP, and doing this weird permission elevating stuff. They're basically trying to get into. I don't even know what they thought they were trying to do. They were elevating permissions outside of the cloud infrastructure that they were in, and using Kubernetes and some other stuff. But that's one of the things about containers that are really confusing, right? I'm not going to open Docker because it takes up a lot of resources when I do on here, but Docker desktop, for example, is awesome if you start to learn about it more and you know how to work in terminal, because you can run a container locally, you can build applications within that container, and it's all free, right? It's open source, and again, a lot of Linux in general, always licensing in my opinion is something but Linux, it's not that everything is going to be free. That for darn sure, there's a lot of Linux tools you pay money for, but it's that there are a lot of free open source things that you can do. If you have the Linux skills, it kind of opens up so many doors for you. And speaking of, anti-gatekeeping, that's kind of part of what I mean by that as well. Is that it should be free information that people can access easily. Now, granted, there's a lot of people out there on YouTube. Don't get me wrong, there's so many educators about that kind of stuff. I think part of what I found is just that, how do I put it best? I have a very unconventional way of sort of I really am kind of like a mental map of systems type person. And so it's hard for me to convey that to other people. We really see you've fallen. You've fallen. There's so much data you've like that. Fallen that tree. The way that my brain works, I don't want to talk about past companies, but I have sorry, fallen. Speaking of pointers, Moon Lunar doesn't make a difference, right? But I know what movie I meant. This movie is really kind of interesting, in my opinion. The concept. Speaking of recursion, right? For anybody that's not seen this movie, this is, and again, I know I've only got one person in here, y'all, and and thank you very much for joining. Honestly, the title is kind of true. It's kind of a long story. It's gonna be confusing for a while. I'll be honest. There's something earlier tonight that was really important that I feel like, and I had to kind of go reboot my computer and come back. But anyway, recursion, right? Like Windows, for example. That's what all tech people joke about. You have to be able to reboot Windows sometimes, just like it broke, right? And I'm not casting shade on Microsoft when I say that, right? But this is just like the joke in the industry. It's like, oh, it's Windows, reboot again. And in all fairness, that's every operating system.
So
you know
it's
what I
still very
mean?
much
Like,
a
because
work
they're
in
all built
progress.
that way.
And
Every
my
operating
music,
system
the
is
way
designed
that
where really you
my
should be
process
rebooting
works
with some
is
frequency
most
no
of it
matter
starts
what.
with
And I'm not trying to,
vocals,
give anybody
I
a
believe very
specific
much
number, but
in
like that's
using
the
your
problem
voice
is
as
you
an
really kind of
instrument.
can't.
And that's
I
kind
know
of the
that
thing,
they're
right?
just
You know,
because
you
I'm
can
familiar with the
layer your
psychology and I'm
voice
familiar with
any
a
number of
lot of
times
people.
with something like
This
a
is what's
digital or
strange for me.
workstation,
I guess I
right?
care
But,
so much about
in my
trying to be
particular case,
empathetic
this
about
last
other
several
people's
years, part of the issue
perspectives.
has
Some
been,
people will not reboot for
there's
6
just
months.
been a lot of
And I'll say honestly, that's like a
felony crime
security
committed
nightmare.
in
like,
pursuing my work from actively.
those,
So
they,
I really have to
you go to somebody's
develop
machine
it,
sometimes, and it's like
mostly
their
without the use of
browser,
any technology,
again,
and that kind of
you
sit
shouldn't
down
shout
and
at
then,
anybody or any of that kind of
start
stuff. And I'm not
singing
trying to be
into
mean
your
when I've brought up
computer,
those kind of
finding
things,
things like that.
before. But it's
For
just
me,
like
that's always kind
it
of
is
been
a
how,
really
it's
core
like
part of my
putting
worldview.
pen to
that,
paper, right?
I'm
You
gonna have to
might
figure
think
out
of
the
a
best way to
melody at
put
random
this
time or
in
some
words for
lyrics
this
that you
list
like.
of
In
descriptors
this
about
case,
sort of what I'm
that
getting
one
at
was
here.
in the
and
shower,
the
right?
bigger
Everybody
picture
sings in
with
the
this.
shower sometimes, right? And that one,
We have to be
for me, it was
patient
like,
with
oh, I like
everyone
these lyrics,
and their level
they
of
have some real
knowledge
meaning,
about
some real heart to
technology.
them.
And if we're not, we're not doing ourselves any favors. We're
They're
not doing
genuine,
our
and they're
environments or
from a
companies any
place of
favors.
very, very positive
Security, for
and
example,
authentic
that's one of the
intent.
biggest
So
parts. Is that you
still
can't
something I'm
expect
gonna have to
everybody
work
to
on and
be like
continue,
very well
developing
versed
and
on a Linux
engineering,
terminal.
but,
Knowing how to look through
if you
logs,
happen to
knowing
listen,
how
I
to
hope you enjoy, thanks for
even
listening.
navigate. Quite frankly, that's going to be a challenge for some people, and it's not to be mean at all, but that is also part of what I've always felt is just that I do think there's a lot of what's the best way to say. It's kind of like when you're trying to teach somebody a new technology and you realize that they kind of just don't necessarily want to learn it. They just want you to do it for them, right? Sometimes that's understandable, right? Sometimes that is understandable, but there's other times where it's like, okay, wait, if we're doing this and you're asking to go through this time, like let's, and that's the thing. I approach with psychology, and so I think sometimes it almost misleads people about what I know because I'll kind of just be very deceivingly humble. Like I'm not trying to be deceiving, but I'm just kind of like, okay, yeah, restart Excel. Okay. And like, if I notice that it was something kind of just like, yeah, you should have restarted this program, I'm not going to be like, no, you just need to restart it. You just need to do this or whatever. I'm not trying to hide it from them in any way, shape or form. I'm saying it's about psychology. We want to be encouraging. We want to, say to them like, hey, really, it's okay. Like you just
so
mention this. But that's also the balance. I think that in the bigger picture, it takes a long
sharing,
time to explain what I'm getting at
I
because
have
there are times where you have to be
been
really
working
adamant
on
about
music
certain things.
for
There's no question. And then I
probably
think there are
about
times
10
where
years now,
patience
on and off.
is required.
I'm not a
if that
musician
makes sense.
in any way.
And that balance is something that,
but
in
it's
my
kind of my
opinion,
chosen art form.
it
A
always
lot
is
of
valuable
diverse
in
interests in my
any
life.
environment or organization to have
And
people around
so
that are
I don't have any
not
training,
just
I don't
very
have any
technical, but also
backing.
can
It's always been
speak
kind of a
and
passion
put
project type
information
thing. And
together
to be
in a
honest
way
with you,
that's
exactly
understandable for other
how I've
people out
always
there.
wanted
And
it,
that was always something
because for
that
me,
I sort of knew about my
I'm
future
not
career
somebody
in
that
tech.
really
is
wants
that
a lot of money in life.
well, in some ways, I'm
I
really
mean that
good
from the
at
bottom of my
learning
heart.
things really quickly. Well, not in some ways. I guess what I
in my
meant.
opinion, much more.
Well, I was gonna
important
say in
things
some
than
ways is that in
money
some ways
in
I
life, and that's
be
part
like
of-
a good liaison
part of what's
between like I learn
frustrating
all the technical
about
stuff
some things
and
that
I can then
have
go
happened
do
the
the
last
business
several
side.
years. There's
Talk
been a lot of
on
lies
a
told
level
about
that's very
who I
easy
am
to
and
understand
what I
and it's
want and
just
sort
step
of,
by step. And it's like, tell me
well,
what level of depth you need. Do you
how do
want
I
the
put it
8-hour
best?
version, or do you want the 8-minute version,
easy
or do
to-
you
to
want
call
the
someone
1 hour? And
something
it's
they're
like
not, especially
maybe I should say
when,
edition, right?
folks
It doesn't
online
really
and
matter.
things
Again,
like
it's just
that.
like
So I'm not really-
either way.
not
I
really
think the
saying that
point is that
misread
when it
necessarily,
comes down
but,
to it, like
I do
what
have work
is
to do in
the
terms of
best way
righting some
for
wrongs
us
that have been done to not just
convey
my
information
family,
when
but other
there's
families
way
out
more
there,
data than
and not just my life, but
you,
other
you
innocent
may or
lives
may
out
not
there.
need. And that's
So
part of what's difficult too about, I'll be
song
honest, it's something on the
is,
autism
very
spectrum that's very
artistically
common for
inspired,
people
if
is
I can
like,
put it that way.
I'll be honest, I don't necessarily need to talk a lot. Like I do love computer. I really do like spending time with people, and there's times where I really do want to talk a lot, and then there's times where I'm like, okay, especially if I'm really stressed out because there's so much to do. I'm not really in a spot where I want to sit and talk a bunch, and that's what the mixed bag for me is that if people want to talk to me, they start talking to me. And it's kind of relevant in this situation in some ways, right? Some people, you know, they're not supposed to be wasting their time on purpose, right? And so that's the thing. We go, you know, we walk into situations with, you know, giving the benefit of the doubt. And at least I do personally. And when I say we, I mean in general. I don't mean any kind of weird, like there's no multiple personality disorder or any of this kind of shit. I think the best way for me to say it is like,
I know
if we want to
need more.
In a technical environment, for example, I think that it's kind of like the leader of the team, maybe in a given meeting, or you could decide who decides. Maybe you make a small committee to decide what, basically define the level of, like, stand-ups, just for example, were always kind of a problem. And I'm not trying to get talk down on any company, but I noticed that people would have valid questions in stand-ups, and then other people think they're not valid questions. Well, nobody really agreed upon, like, okay, how much information are we supposed to be conveying in this stand-up? I'm not saying that wasn't ever the case, but I'm saying that can be, there's so much subjectivity, so much. In fact, I'm going to type that on the page. Like,
Oh, I know you need more. You need me. You've fallen.
Really, even in conversations and decisions.
Oh,
right?
I know.
Again, when I say we, you know, to the my
you
one year,
need
like,
more.
I say we as in. Well, in general, I've been practicing for
you've
podcasts.
fallen. Oh, you've fallen. Oh, you've fallen. Oh, you've fallen that tree.
I think the problem is that naturally, especially when we're really, you know, how do you put it best? When people are really smart, and they kind of sometimes, you know, that's the thing. I'm not taking any credence away from their intelligence. I think really intelligent people, it's actually one of the things that's more challenging sometimes. They kind of want things to be really black and white and cut and dry. So I'm always kind of encouraging people to see things more in a series of spectrums, because that's kind of the logician side of, you know, my brain. Like,
you need more.
It's not about autism. I mean it.
You need me.
The reason I say that is it's more like everything
fallen.
Oh,
you've fallen. Oh, you've fallen. Oh, you've fallen.
Sometimes communication breaks down when there are things that are treated as, you know, objective. It's like, no, you have to do it this one way. And it's like, well, actually, there's like 30 different ways to do that, and you may not have known that. I'm not sure, right? But even then, it's like that sounds condescending, right? If somebody's like, no, you do it this one way, and you're like, well, there's a lot of options actually, and it's like, well, now it always has to be this way, and it's like, and that's kind of the thing. Then, right, you get to this point where it's like, okay, you're almost like, okay, you have to offer the explanation, right?
You need more.
There is only this one way, and that's kind of what's complicated, because to me it brings up a lot of psychology when you're talking about things like
you've
fallen.
Oh, you've fallen. Oh, you've fallen.
There's so much psychology involved in every layer.
Fallen.
In fact, that's one of the things that's interesting to me.
Fallen. Oh, you've
you start to realize that people
you've hurt so many families.
Interesting things to bring up. They kind of start seeing computers in a different way, right? And it almost changes the way they communicate, you know, because I'll be honest, that this terminal is very much about information.
You need more. You need me. You
kind of feeling
fallen.
Like that's the thing. I don't personally, but I think a lot of people get used to working on this when they do, and they're kind of like, oh, they're sneaky, you know. Hackers, obviously, they're doing a lot of SSH, right? They're working from one tunnel to another, to a container, I had somebody in the past who was describing to me, like, I'm connecting from a VPN to a container running in the cloud service connecting to another cloud service connection. And they weren't even doing something sketchy with that, when they were explaining that to me. But that's how these actors work, and they think they can really hide their trail when they do that a lot of times.
You need more.
Especially that's where I just also in the beginning, please be a white hat. And I probably need to put that on the list, right? I'll finish what I was typing there, but I will say white hat, for sure, because I'm not a hacker, but I do know enough that I think that's the thing. People see anybody working on a term, when they're like hacking, hacker, or whatever. In general, that's kind of why it's so important to me that we keep in mind that psychology is such an important part of, a lot of this entire looking at tech and the big picture.
We all know what we really
not really
see.
An idea, but I just always
fallen.
It's a part of the, I guess again, the root level logic. I want to understand how things work. I want to understand how things work. That's why I love science. Because science is, you built a method. Science wouldn't exist in a way without us agreeing upon a method. We form a hypothesis. We test that hypothesis. Verify the results. And we arguing, of course, at times about, was the study done well? Was it, really like that? There's so much nuance to all of that, and that's again why to me it's like, okay, it's more of a series of spectrums. There are things that are plain, scientific fact, and then there are things where it's like, okay, there's some, there's some giving room. One of the things that's, speaking of religion in some ways, and wow, that's a weird term, right? But no, I don't think that science and religion are in any way, we act like they're a debate against each other, and that's the most bizarre thing to me in the world. Because there's so many, especially if you study history, like so many scientists were deeply adamant about their faith, really, and never for a moment were they like, well, I'm learning science, and so now I don't believe in God. And I'm not trying to offend anybody that is atheist. I'll be honest, that's one of the things that's kind of bizarre to me, is that that's like, I'm kind of,
my music,
actually it's kind of relevant to this thing, like,
my process
people would hate me for saying this, but I'm not going to tell you you're going to hell if you're an atheist. I don't know how else to say it. I'll be honest, I think that there's kind of a lot of getting caught up on, like, now you are, and if you tell people they're not going to hell if they're an atheist, then you're going to hell. And I'll be honest, okay, then, you go ahead and believe that, but I'll be frank, I'd spend a lot of time at times, not necessarily throughout these last 3 years, but I've spent a lot of time
committed in
reading scripture and pondering on that and thinking about it deeply.
Develop it,
I won't say
mostly
that
without the use of any technology
ever, but I will say that, to be honest, it really matters to me
a computer,
a lot,
phone,
that,
things like that. And
I do
for
believe
me, that's
in God,
always kind of been
even
how,
at times
it's
when
like putting
I've
pen
been
to paper,
sort of,
right?
I've called myself an agnostic
in
those times. In the past, I've more
in this
just
case,
had frustrations mostly with
in the shower, right? Everybody sings in the shower sometimes,
getting out of control, if that makes sense.
It
sounds bad. It sounds like I'm saying I'm anti now, but I'm not. I'm saying that this organization in particular, actually,
from a place of very positive.
because really they kind of want to.
Still something I'm going to have to work on and continue,
religion,
developing and engineering.
And that's kind of what makes a key difference to me.
If you have to listen, I hope you enjoy.
There's a pretty significant, degree of brutalization into not just quote compliance, but into you have to feel the exact same way that we do, or you're not with God. And it's like, okay, wait a second, y'all. I mean, I'll be honest, it seems like you didn't study the root level logic, which is scripture, because scripture is saying that it's quite simple. No, it's not some loophole in any way, shape, or form. But that's kind of the thing, is it is about the heart of it all, right? If you're approaching folks and berating them about how they're gonna go to hell, and well, that's what's weird. I've kind of said that to some of these people in this context. I'm gonna be honest, because well, they have done exactly what's on the screen here, because they hate me so much, and that's what's so terrible to me. Is I know it sounds so horrible, but it is actually true, and that's why it's like, I wouldn't be here currently unemployed at the moment, which I'm not happy to say. Like, I have so much skill and so much education, and the only reason that I can't have a job right now is I'm actually stuck in it because of the prison created by these people. that is a quote invisible person, right? They don't really want to have to talk about it a lot, but without even saying the name of the one who's been on the screen here on and off, like they've got a piece of spyware. They keep pointing to my cell phone, and then they're trying to pretend that they're not. It's like, you're not sneaky. It's like freaking Drax, in that one scene.
You've fallen.
Same with it. That's the problem. These people, okay, this organization and this guy, they are, he owns them. A lot of them didn't know this. They actually did not know this. This is a Russian intelligence operation, and I didn't really want to have to talk about that a lot, but it is, well, it's true, and it's absolutely true. I want to see if there's a GIF. This one's kind of applicable. Oh, I like when they but I guess I could just do this. He is one of my favorite characters in these movies because it's really funny in my opinion. But let's see. That's one thing I will say about that organization. I use a lot of pop culture references when I'm communicating information, and see, they get caught up on the facade. That's the issue. That's what they don't realize, is that it goes over their head. I'm serious. Like, that's what this organization doesn't realize. They have some of these people. They've accused me of, like, oh, now, entertainment is brainwashing people because I talk about the Avengers. I talk about, for example, like this movie or, this movie right here, right? It's like I'm using pop culture references to explain things, right? Beyond the words. And that's what's so weird to me is, like, that's kind of, I've had a lot of discussions about art in my life and what that necessarily means. And I've had some really important, good discussions, in my opinion. And it's difficult because, I don't want to get into all of it, but, like, I used to really, really love having conversations with one of my brothers about art in particular. And we would talk all the time about, basically art is, you're conveying so much meaning beyond the words. And, that's what I was always trying to explain to my, family in general. Streaming is a new art form. You're using all this technology wired up, and it's not perfect, and it's kind of, that's what's kind of great about it, is it's not perfect. Like, it's so much more. At 30 frames per second, that's how my brain works. It's kind of interesting in some ways. It's like, okay, I'm capturing at 30 frames per second. So, what that means is every second there's 30 images, and then I've also got, audio that I'm streaming, and, well, compression is a really fascinating technology in my opinion, right? Speaking of, I am, mostly self-educated, but something like compression, I'll be honest, you need to hear someone that's really educated speak about it to understand, and that's where I do say I'm extremely grateful for all of the college education that I have had. There's no question about that at all, and I will always repeat that and repeat that and repeat that for my lifetime. But, I think that when I'm looking at something like streaming, that's what people don't necessarily understand, is I'm looking beyond the facades. I'm looking beyond the obvious. I'm looking, into the future a little bit, but nobody can see into the future, right? And this is not, I don't believe in aliens. I like the whole idea, right? Because we had a really valid scientific reason to send, probes into space and try to see, what can we find? It's like a moonshot, right? It's like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, like, really, and I'm not even saying it's really a moonshot, but I'm just saying it's just like, it's actually, it's so kind of heartfelt and cool to me that somebody even took the time, to make this, like, and I really mean this, because nobody had to do this. Like, people can say that they think it's dumb or silly, and that's the thing. It's not about aliens, necessarily at all, right? Well, you're like, well, but it is about, and it's supposed to be, I don't know. I guess, is it really even about aliens, or was this almost about human beings just as much? And I want to be honest, that's part of why this is an interesting symbol to me, because I actually do feel that way. I feel that this is just as much about human beings as it is about sending something into space for aliens, right? I think people think about this like, oh, we're sending them messages. But in all fairness, y'all, aliens would have to find this and figure out, like, what the F is this? Why they put this gold, disc thing on there? Like, what does this mean? Like, if we found some random crap like this, we'd be like, what is this? They'd have to figure out how to, they had, again, I'm not even saying I was am or the most educated about NASA or space or any of this kind of stuff, right? But it's kind of like, the concept and the sentiment, I think, is what really made it matter at the end of the day. That's what really made it matter. It wasn't about that we're hoping the aliens find this and they put it on a record player and it's like, oh, thank goodness the aliens also have record players, right? But like, honestly, I think that there was a lot of thought and intent put into it. And in some ways, what was that about? Well, how would we represent human beings when you're thinking about this concept of like, if we're completely alien, to something else out there, right? Like, what's fair about representing us, Like, really, I kind of mean that. It's like, and that's where it's, to me, is like, I think, when I've pondered in my lifetime, I think we kind of obsess over trying to believe if aliens are real or not too much, because, it's like whether or not we have an answer to that question, that's kind of the whole thing. It's like, it almost doesn't matter. There's always going to be actual mystery in our world. We should never forget that we don't actually know everything. We don't even know everything about the human consciousness. And that's something that I always kind of bring up on this topic, because the human consciousness in and of itself, anyone on the planet Earth is lying if they're like, nope, I have the full, complete answer about how it works. It's like, okay, then, make ChatGPT a real human being, right? ChatGPT is a great example, though, because, wow, that is actually so impressive. I'm not going to, really, to be completely honest, in DevOps, for example, the amount, I'm curious, like, companies, for example, probably having to have real conversations about what they allow with ChatGPT and what its usage in their environment is, for example, because, well, and this is how I think about it, right? The root level logic, speaking of all of this, you could take ChatGPT and Bash, for example. It can give you a really easy, just fun, speaking of, memorizing syntax. Well, you kind of already we're at the point. This is something for the far future. Do I have a writing on here under, no, I don't, do I? Because I have done a fair amount of writing in my life. I've never published anything, but, I like writing, and at times that's the thing, in this whole everything that's going on here in particular, like with these folks, like that's kind of part of the problem. Is like, I'll be honest, I'm just not a vengeful person in any way, shape, or form. They're the total opposite of me in that way. They're like, you can't say no to these people, apparently, and they're just going to keep going, and they're not going to take no for an answer. That's what I don't understand. It's actually completely psychopathic in that way, because nobody asked for my permission to do anything. Nobody asked for my consent, and I wasn't trying to be mad. But it's like, to be honest with you, that's well, you can't force something upon someone that's torture for them, literally, and you're lying about the context, which is that I was being hacked with reckless abandon, by literally a group of criminal psychopaths that I don't want to talk about, any of it, if I'm being honest. I just want them to stop. Leave me alone. That's part of what was happening earlier, if I'm being honest. Like, go away. I don't want to have to say names, but I will bring up countries. And again, it's like, to be honest with you, if I have to in the middle of a stream because you're still doing it, I will literally, I'm going to sit there and locate you, like literally, as I just did just a minute ago. So, really don't continue. I mean it. Like, it's not okay, to be honest. International law with this stuff, it's just that's how some of them, unfortunately, they're like, oh, I'm not worried because, like, really, they just don't care at all. And that's what bothers me. Eventually, you know, I really, how do I, eventually, you know, like other people start to take note and they're like, wait a minute, you're all hacking one guy with reckless abandon, you know, isn't this so cool how Google Earth is just like the biggest floating planet virtual? Like, I can't imagine someday they're going to build this in VR and it's going to be like freaking amazing. You just like fly over the planet like you're on a spaceship or something. But I'm definitely not like obsessed with space or spaceships or any of that kind of stuff. And I really mean it. It's just kind of like my taste. It really is, you know, like I like sci-fi, and that's kind of what I'm getting at with all of this, you know. Speaking of the human consciousness, and like I had the Twilight Zone GIF pulled up earlier, right? Where did I lose that? You know, I was always, my father and I used to sit and watch the Twilight Zone all the time together, and like, you know, that definitely has a lot of meaning to me. I've always said like I would love to, you know, I think there was a revamp of the show, but like I was always a huge Twilight Zone fan, really, because, you know, some of the episodes I'm not saying I was a huge fan of because they scared the hell out of me. Like, real. Some of the episodes scared the hell out of me. It was actually kind of terrifying, and that's the thing. There's some really scary episodes in that show, but some of them are less scary. But I was not the kind of person that was ever scared by movies or fiction, because that's the whole thing. And to be honest, I'm just not a scared person in general. How do I put it? I'm just not a fearful person. And that's what's weird about, there's been so much false projection upon my mental health by people that took work from me and then lied about what it was, and then lied about, well, what they were doing to me, and then lied about what they said to other people, and then lied and lied and lied, and then got mad when I said, I'm sorry that that's illegal and abusive, and I didn't want to talk about it, but now I'm talking about it because, well, you know, some of them refuse to stop, if I'm being honest, and like that's what gets so annoying and frustrating. But anyway, back on topic, right? It kind of like, I think that when I think about sci-fi and all of this, like, for example, one of the stories that I was writing, it was kind of like a short story, and I'm a big fan of Ray Bradbury. Like, I'm really a fan of a lot of the older sci-fi authors, and, you know, one of, like, The Illustrated Man has some really interesting, you know, stories in it, for example, and I think that one of the things, you know, again, I don't know how to say it best, like, people obsess. I think in this day and age, you even bring up an author's name, and it's like a political thing. That's a problem, is what I'm saying. We have to get away from that because, you know, frankly, that's the opposite of how we should be thinking. Speaking of being a logician, like, you know, for anybody to think it's a political statement to bring up an author, right? It's like, well, if you bring up George Orwell, of course, everybody's like, oh, no, you know, you're complaining about X, Y, or Z, right? But I'm not, you know, that's what I'm saying is, you know, the complicated thing is that, to be honest with you, in this particular context, the law has not been obeyed in any way, shape, or form with what's happened with just one federal law enforcement agency. And I didn't want to talk about it, you know what I'm saying? It's like, but see, that's the problem, is if they refuse to obey the law and they keep not obeying the law, then, well, then I'm going to sit here and, again, that's kind of the thing, is like, it's one thing to not obey the law, it's another thing to victimize innocent people because they're trying to frame me, which is actually what they've done. And I don't really want to say it because look how controversial that is, but why would they be willing to go so far out of their way to make that situation? And again, that's the thing, we have constitutionally protected freedom of speech. This is literally, you know, that is the law. If they break the law with reckless abandon, trying to, you know, force a horrible situation, then quite frankly, like, they need to understand that, you know, citizens they have to speak to protect themselves. That's the only protection that citizens have. And I think a lot of people, it's like, you know, to be honest with you, what's happened, you know, it's some I'm not going to pull up the page, but it's some ACLU level stuff. That's maybe the more tactful way to say it. It is literally some ACLU level stuff. It is that severe and systematic that, you know, it makes it, quite frankly, completely and objectively unacceptable the way that some of it's gone. But that's kind of what's also horrible, right? The bunch of people that, well, committed real crimes I told the truth about, and then they turned around and they told it reckless doublespeak. So speaking of George Orwell, they were just like, doublespeak, 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 and then we got to the point where it's like, no, well, we already only heard doublespeak about you, so now you have to live in doublespeak that they said about you, don't you know? And it's like, no, I do not. And no, I do not. That's not how it works, you know? If you try to do that to me, it's like, you're gonna feel like you're breaking into the Twilight Zone, because suddenly you're gonna, hear me just like, wow, you were really mistreating me. And when you make someone on the autism spectrum really uncomfortable and unsafe for an extended period of time, it's actually like real relentless torture for them. And that's where it's just like, I'll be honest that I don't want anybody ever to pay for anything for me without my permission. And I'll be honest, like it's actually illegal, quite frankly, to do that and then be like, no, now you get to be our slave because, well, even though it wasn't legal, we again, that's what's complicated for me. But that being said, I mean it when I say that I'm a grateful person through and through. But that's the thing, in order to be grateful, there has to be communication. If there's no communication, then, well, that's part of the problem, right? Eventually it becomes like a relentless, ridiculous ACLU level thing, because you're opening up the door for people that, well, they claim like they're good people and like they have ethics. But that's the problem, is a lot of us in this world kind of no better, like we see through it, if I'm being honest. Like, no, we've seen this kind of stuff too many times. And it's, frankly, and it's not that we've seen this exact, I'll be honest, this is that 1 in a billion for a lot of people out there on the planet Earth. Like, this will be that 1 in a billion where they just could not believe because they didn't have faith, because a group of people was telling lies about one person so relentlessly and hacking him and subjecting him to defamation and dehumanization and all this kind of stuff. But what happened earlier is kind of true. Like, I really, that's the thing. Now I've got a bunch to, deal with and got to communicate about this, and it's frustrating, but it is what it is when it comes down to it. Like, I guess for me, it's like, how do I put it best? One of the stories I was writing was this concept of, that we'll have artificial intelligence someday, where a job like mine, I brought up the movie Moon, which I didn't really talk about why. At one of my jobs, I was like, it felt like the movie Moon. Like I'm managing, all the servers and 30 computers, and I'm not trying to say specific numbers at all, but I'm saying it's like, basically we were all remote and I was the only one in the office many times, and so it was kind of like I really, and I say only one, but I'm serious. If I wish there was a fly in the wall sometimes, because it was like 1 of 2, 1 of 3, 1 of 2, 1 of 3, 1 of 4, 1 of 2, 1 of 3. And like before that, we kind of had a full office, and I loved that, if I'm being honest. Like, yeah, we get to be around people. Now, there's consolations, right? And I'm like, there's a balance. That's the whole thing. I don't need like, a corner where it's just like perfectly blocked off from everybody. I just need a safe place that, occasionally, as long as there's a quiet place that I can go to when I'm in the middle of some work I can do without quiet. Some work I need quiet, you know what I mean? Like, and that's what's difficult. I think remote work has some really important, benefits for that kind of stuff. But being in an office also, it's like it actually is invaluable at the same time. So to me, it's a nuanced thing. Because I'll be honest, I think that with technology, we can actually more and more make the idea of having a virtual office more possible. And that's a lot of what I've kind of been writing and working on also. But again, it's not any proprietary anything. That's actually something I need to emphasize. I'm not using anybody's proprietary concepts or technologies, and that's what's so terrible about this group of people that have, well, broken the law, hacking me with reckless abandon. Is, I'll be honest, they're really unethical, and they committed, some of them, some really ridiculously serious crimes that, like, and for any of them, like, they don't get to come, like, I can build brand new technologies that are completely separate from anything relating to anything that they have ever even spoken to me about. They didn't even know how educated I was, about technology, yes, but especially about things like psychology and law and a lot of other stuff that they didn't know about me, quite frankly. And that's part of where it's like really frustrating to me, because, to be honest with you, if people are going to play games with that, then it's like I'm very anti-gatekeeping. They're the total opposite. And what I mean about that is that, well, none of them have any valid claim at all to sit around and surveil me and act like they're like being, the paternal, the amount of paternal condescension from some of those folks when they're objectively, some of them, straight up criminal psychopaths. It's like, you need to get the Well, it's 18 plus only. You need to get the fuck over yourselves. You need to get the fuck over yourselves, because really I can build brand new technologies. Nobody gets to tell me like, oh no, we think we had an influence on, your later, forming a brand new idea. That's the thing. That's like, again, how do I put this best? If anything, I had a massive influence on what these people did in their environment that really ended up working out. And, well, I don't want to talk about past companies, but the way that I want to say it best is that, speaking of psychology, some of them didn't even realize how much of an influence I had at times because it was so subtle, right? I wasn't being sneaky, but I was just very subtly, encouraging teammates to work in certain ways, encouraging, for example, we did use Discord, right? And like, I'll be honest, that's the thing that kind of is just lame to me. Discord, before I could have said some positive things. Now it's just been lorded over my life as a tool to enact literal modern slavery in real life, which is so illegal. But, the thing about Discord is that there's nothing about it that is actually, well, original in any way. Speaking of being original, or like, intellectual property, Slack already existed. A lot of other chat technologies already existed, and Discord was just kind of like the gamer preferred one. If I'm, gamers, literally video gamers, right? It's like how much shit talking there's been about video games to me, and they've sat around using what is known as a video gamer network tool. And no offense to anybody on Twitch, but that's kind of the thing, y'all. It's like, I'll be honest. I mean, I'm gonna be looking at all of the alternatives to Discord, number one, and then number two, I'm probably building, a separate one of my own. That's, I'm not gonna use anything proprietary, but that's the point. I don't know if people even know this. Discord is built upon a bunch of open source technologies. Like that's the thing. All of the way that these people work. It's kind of like the folks. I was working with, one of the biggest problems that I don't want to talk about had to do with the fact that they're trying to build everything open source, but they're not yet. And, well, yada, yada, right? They're kind of like, it's important to remember that not everything is open source when it's not, and, like, that's relevant. And if you're used to always moving in the direction of open source, that's cool. But, to be honest with you, you're never going to be in a spot, especially when you're selling a product, that everything is open source. You're never. And so for me, I guess like what I was explaining with the this concept, I'm gonna come speak to this more tomorrow. But really, this is kind of how my brain works in a way. Not that I'm a clone in any way, shape, or form, right? But that was kind of in the fiction of Voyager. Well, to be clear, speaking of writing, this name did. I mean, I didn't just write a story. There's a whole universe that was here that was intended to allow me to write a bunch of different plot lines within this. That was the whole point. And so with this, no, in no way did I ever, have disassociation or, dissociative personality disorder. I was like, that's what's so ridiculous about surveilling someone. And it's like, why is he suddenly going, this is the Voyager signing on? You know what I mean? It's like, it's just an artistic thing. To me, that's abundantly obvious as acting, which is art, right? And you're acting, it's art. And you're streaming in some ways. You're not really, it's a mixture of things, right? I'm not acting. I'm being heartfelt, to be honest, like right now. And that's part of what's so bizarre to me is like, this whole situation has been torture, and I don't feel amazing about sitting here, well, especially with the title of what this is, and I would like that title to change, you know what I mean? Like, I would like this to not be true. I would like, to be honest, there was a corrupt DA that made the thing, and that's what's so complicated about the situation. Some people just kind of like either don't know that or they don't believe it, right? But either way, what I'm saying is that, my mental map of things is kind of like, okay, there's like, well, how many computers under our, umbrella? And I'm not going to give a number, right? Because that's what's complicated, right? I can't talk about, intellectual property, and I won't. Really, I mean it. I'm mindful of that. And even, I will say that giving a specific number of workstations, for example, is not proprietary in any way, shape, or form, right? It's kind of it's like, how many computers does a computer lab have? Usually 25, 30, you know what I mean? It's like, that's, okay, no, you're sharing proprietary information. See, like, That's how dumb some of them are. It's like, really, it's like, what's your general guess for the number of computers that, are in a laboratory, really, again, it's just the most basic stuff that they would try to say. Is like, oh no, you can't use Windows because you used to use Windows, 20 years before you came to this company, and literally that actually is true now that I think about it. But so I'm just gonna say it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it actually is true. Either way, that's what I'm saying. Is like that's how bigoted some of them honestly have been the whole time, and probably will continue to be as long as some of them can. But I'm not referring. It's a small group of people, if I'm being honest, and they were in Austin. I'll just say that, and that's all, right? Because I don't really want to be more specific than that. They were pretty, really more than terrible to me. They were, when I had been so good to them for so long. I'd been so good to them for so long. But either way, this was kind of like, I'm going, into an office every day, right? And the honest to God truth is like, this symbol does kind of have meaning to me, right? Because it's like, well, if anybody is familiar with ODST, you find out that it's a little alien guy. He's like, it's not actually an AI. Like, that's the thing that's cool to me, is that, you think it's an AI, the superintendent, and then it turns out it's not a computer, it's an alien. It's an alien driving, like, the computers, right? And that's the thing, y'all. When I say y'all, I know there's just one quote viewer, and again, to be honest, to this one viewer, that's what's so complicated to me about this whole thing, is that I will let you know that you're not the only person listening to me right now. Which is complicated, and it has to do with the spyware on the cell phone and the blah blah blah, right? I don't really want to talk about it, but it's really illegal and abusive. But anyway, I have to just be able to be honest, and we have freedom of speech, right? And with this concept, I think part of the reason this symbol was always kind of interesting to me is because it makes you think about, well, computers, well, again, we are human beings. We're not computers, but our brains are like the most powerful computers that exist on the planet Earth. And so, the fact that we don't even understand human consciousness completely, it's kind of interesting for me, in my opinion, to think about the fact that, human consciousness drives a computer, but every person uses a computer in a different way. And there's no one way to use a computer. And computers are multi-purpose tools. And that's the whole thing about operating systems. We argue about them over, like there's one that's better or the best. And that's simply not the case. Just like there's no one best device. It's like, again, instead of being so black and white, we should look at things more as a series of spectrums. Because to be honest with you, it's kind of like saying, what's better, Apple or Android? And we're already kind of like, oh no, it's Apple, oh no, it's Android, oh no, it's Apple, oh no, it's Android. It's like, well, that's the thing that's so difficult, right? It's like, what's your use case? Oh, well, my preference, oh no, I need to do this, right? And like, that's the thing. A lot of it is subjective. A lot of it is, really, there's so much subjectivity. There really actually is. Objectively, who wants to say that they can say what, a brand new modern iPhone versus a brand new modern Pixel? Who wants to say that they can objectively say which one is better? And I'm just, as a logician, I'm going to be the first to point out that you're already wrong. If you even think that you can say, you're already wrong. And I think that's what's bizarre to me, right? It's almost like, no, we have to have an answer to the debate. It's like GIF versus GIF. Does it really matter? Like, is it really that big of a deal? I don't actually really think so. You know what I mean? Like, I think the honest to God truth is, for me, I believe that you should learn both, and from a fundamental, and it's not that's not my answer to everything, right? It's like, well, I want to be clear. It's not like, okay, now don't debate because both, right? But what I'm saying is that, like, you should be able to, like, at least understand enough that, you're looking at them beyond the facades, right? Because there are some really core fundamental aspects, especially when it's actually a topic I'll cover already. It's like, to be honest, and probably to do with this in some ways, it's like it's not that I've had so much held back in any way, but it's more of just like, I've never had money. I've never had, really been in a position where I can sit down and just generate content that I actually, was ready to put out there on the internet. And that, in some ways, I think that's why streaming was interesting to me, is that I wanted to like be able to just hit stream. And I know that I'm mindful of what I say in general, and that's the thing, is I don't like this context, I don't like this beginning, but I will say that that's the thing, right? In some ways this title can change really easily. These people kind of obey the law, kind of, well, that's my point. There's a problem is, I'm gonna bring up this quote, and this is really, quickly, because it is very, very true. Every single moment these people remain focused on me means pushing real violent criminals back out into the community of Texas and beyond. And that is not my opinion. That is a plain statement of objective fact. My innocence has already been asserted with real, irrefutable data, like over and over and over and over again. And I'll be honest, I'm very anti-bigotry, right? So it's kind of like difficult for me, I'm there's been a lot of, kind of conscious bigotry, if I'm being honest. And so I'm gonna take a pause there, and I'll say a little bit more before I'm done for the night. But again, I appreciate, the one listener, I don't even know, like, should I be asking for a sub if you're interested? Like, I don't care. Like, I don't even, I'll be honest right now. It's like, that's the thing, right? I'm not worried about that at the moment. I'm actually just making sure that I put myself out there enough, permanently, that like people cannot continue to lie about who I am fundamentally as a human being. And it's always been a matter of allowing me to be comfortable and safe in this context and just actually speak. There's been so much conscious intent to literally muzzle me, which is like the most horrible thing in the world, if I'm being honest, because, we're allowing someone to be muzzled while we're also allowing people to actively abuse their identity, steal their passwords, steal their accounts, get into all their computers. That's, again, has to do with the shark hunting that was going on earlier. It's like really hunting down some sharks. So I'm gonna go play just back on the main reason I have way more music than this. It's just all I've been able to upload so far. Some of my music, as I've explained, it's just like, it's not even in a computer yet, because I work even just word of mouth a lot of times. I sing it out loud, and then I sit down and I capture it. And so I mean it when I say that, this stuff, what I kind of do enjoy now about this, I've finally got it out there. It's just like, okay, nobody can say DCMA, it's my music. I did write all of this, so there you go. If anybody, didn't know, it's like, I'm not even saying it's good. To be honest, these recordings, a lot of them are part of the reason when I'm singing along, I'm laughing because there's certain parts of these where I sung it, like I sung, there's a part where I messed up at the first time, and I was just like, whatever, upload it. And that's why it says WHIP, work in progress, right? It's like, it's all work in progress, as the playlist says, WHIP, work in progress. That's not a veiled anything, is actually literally just what it means, WHIP, work in progress. That's a common, acronym. But I'm gonna, let that play, and then I'll be back in just like a minute.
There you go, 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 there you go. There you go, 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 there you go. There you go, there you go, there you go, don't you know, now you're born the Voyager, ripping through time and space to lyrically destroy ya. Ain't got no time and space, this shit goes supernova. Ain't got no time and space to, ain't got no time and space to, there you go. There you go, there you go, there you go. There you go, there you go, there you go. There you go, there you go, there you go. There you go, there you go, there you go. Don't you know, now you're born the Voyager, ripping through time and space to lyrically destroy ya. Ain't got no time to waste, this shit goes supernova. Ain't got no time and space to, ain't got no time to waste, there you go. There you go, there you go, there you go. There you go, 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 there you go. Don't you know, now you're born the Voyager, ripping through time and space to lyrically destroy ya. Ain't got no time to waste, this shit goes supernova. Ain't got no time and space to, ain't got no time and space to, there you go. There you go, there you go, there you go. There you go, there you go, there you go. There you go, there you go, there you go. There you go, there you go.
So lyrics. I think one of the important things about lyrics is you can't understand them without commentary. And this shit goes supernova. That sounds scary, but what is that figuratively meaning if we're looking beyond the obvious? Because it's not a reference to anything that, well, these neurotic people, and again, I'm very anti-bigotry. I'm trying to be patient when I say this, right? Really, what does that actually mean? This shit goes supernova. Well, I'm singing something that I know is different. You understand? I genre bend a lot. I have a lot of different artistic influences. I'm into R&B, rap, hip-hop, classical is my favorite. I like to make music that blends those across. I've got artists like Apache that I'm a huge fan of. He's a Canadian, right? I've got artists like, Flume that I'm a huge fan of. I've got artists like, well, I can keep going on and on and on. That's the thing. I'm not a walking jukebox by any means. It's more like my memory works that I know these songs. I hear that song one time and it's like there's so much information in that music. Daft Punk, Cascade, Deadmau5 were the three. That's kind of the main symbolism. There's, I'm into, symbolism, and it's not mental illness. Like, design, for example, designing a phone is art. Designing a laptop is art. Designing, infrastructure is artistic, actually. I'll be honest. You look at these complicated diagrams of infrastructure, and it's like, that's the thing, right? I'm not going to talk about anybody's IP, right? I signed NDAs, but that's the thing, is these people have not, some of them have not been mindful of what NDAs, actually contain, and what they're, actually limiting. And the NDA does not cover, well, if you commit felony crime and you're victimizing someone relentlessly, that's not covered by an NDA, and to be honest. But, again, I think that's what's complicated for me is like, is writing an NDA art? Well, somebody could probably argue that it is, that loves writing NDAs. I'm not sure who does, right? But again, I don't really want to talk about that kind of stuff. I think the point for me is that at the end of the day, how do I say it best? Somebody sort of did me a favor by not asking me to sign an NDA in some of what happened. And I really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. Because, well, there's a double-edged sword to asking somebody to sign an NDA, right? And some serious stuff happened, and you ask them, that's the thing. In order really to silence someone about something, you got to say, okay, this is what happened, and we need you to not talk about it. So, don't disclose, right? But if nobody approaches me, and well, then there's probably a reason for that, right? And they may understand that I need my freedom of speech in order to protect myself. And I do, and I did in this context. And so from the bottom of my heart to anybody out there that hears my words speaking about that understands what I mean, and I know it's complicated, I really appreciate that, because I would not be alive in a way. But what's also complicated is that, again, it's like, well, for an NDA to even be formed, none of this, it's, again, I'm not mad at, that's what I'm saying, is kind of a favor, because, well, that's what was so complicated is real public corruption, and there's legal obligations, right? And so that's part of what I'm saying, is that at the end of the day, like, it is just that nuance. It really is. My Twitter, statements are, well, really heartfelt, and especially about this, like, not, well, that is true, but really, going back to what I most recently tweeted, a very quick public note, I'm not trying to, bring attention to anybody either, but I'm wanting everybody to know that I've done the best I can here. Like, I've got to be able to use my freedom of speech to protect myself at the same time, to be honest with you. I'm just trying to figure out how that is saying what it says, but I'm gonna have to. There's a couple things I got to do before I go to bed, and then I'll have to look at that more tomorrow. That doesn't make any sense. Either way, yeah, that's the problem, right? Somebody did unfortunately break into this account last night, and they don't seem to realize that all of my why would I say it, y'all? I don't have to go into it. Okay, all right. Look, the main thing about what was I saying? Art and lyrics, right? When I say this shit goes supernova, it's music. It's artistic expression, right? I think that's what's so frustrating to me, is that it is not any veiled reference. In fact, I'm a fan of space. Okay, there's one thing, right? A lot of it is just that it sounds right in the moment when I'm singing it. These songs are written by singing and then iterating upon that. And for people to steal those lyrics repeatedly, and that's the thing, about the title of this stream, is like they are not this in any way. They can't claim that they are, because, well, they've been more than hateful and bigoted towards me. That's the honest to God truth. And a lot of people know that. That's what's, it's kind of the painful part about this. I know that a lot of people know that right now on this whole planet. But, it's just like being cast out of society, and, not in a legal or moral or reasonable way, right? It's just like, you're cast out. No, you don't get to be a part of life. And so, we're not going to obey the law. We're not going to let you do your job. We're not going to, okay, well, then I've constitutionally protected freedom of speech, and to be honest, I can prove that you're tangibly preventing me from doing my job. So, you better be ready for the consequences of that, because they're very severe and serious when you actually do, censor me on Facebook discussing an article from state.gov that is accurate. And the only reason you'd be censoring me when I'm making that statement in particular is that that is so true. It's true. That's another. It's like, well, am I really, are all of my lyrics some reference to that? No, they're not at all. That's the thing. It's like, well, to be honest, some of them now are kind of just, well, heartfelt from this crappy situation. It could mean multiple different things, right? That's the other thing about lyrics. But that one, there you can go. That was just about the sound, really. And I mean it when I say, is like, when I built that one, I was using filters and Logic. I'm looping through. That's one of the things about Logic that I like is you can set when you can do this with most DAWs, but you can set the loop points, right? So you hit play, you found, okay, there's a good loop, right? Now it's looping, and then you're building, right? And it's just like building code. It's just like run it, okay, deploy, right? I always come back to the CI/CD pipeline, right? Because it really is so important, in my opinion, to even think about the way that I build music. Like, this whole concept of that you have an iterative process and you're actually using automations throughout that. What is a DAW? It's really automation, right? But it's not. That's the thing, right? We get on this soul that, like, I think that's what really frustrates me, and I'm gonna have to, because I do have a couple things to do before I go to bed, but and I'm really tired, honestly, and I'm really hungry, and it's ridiculous. This whole situation, quite frankly, is more than outrageous. But I this concept is basically about, for me, it's like, again, the way that my brain works, it's like you plan, and then you build, you code, and then you're building, and then you're testing, and then you're releasing it, right? It's like, streaming is kind of like, oh, that's an interesting thing, right? You're streaming the process of even your planning, and then you're coding, and then you're building, and that's the thing. If people want to sit around and project upon my lyrics that they've stolen from me through felony crime, then I'll show you the whole process, and you have no opportunity to be like, oh no, he's being weird or scary or making quote threats or any of this kind of BS, because I've never threatened anyone. I'm not making threats in any way, shape, or form. Anybody that's trying to say that I have or that I am is a liar. That's the honest to God truth. Straight up liar. It's like, and that's the thing, when you have no integrity or obligation to the objective truth, well, then it's really easy to just say that someone is making a threat when they're not, when they're just frustrated, validly frustrated, right? And it's like, for me in this context, that is relevant, and I'll have to speak to it more tomorrow. But what I really mean when I say the shit goes supernova, if anything, is just that I knew that it's a different sound. My sound is, that's one thing, and the reason that my Twitter says the original, right? Well, I knew that this name was weird, and I wasn't trying to be some weird special snowflake in any way. It's just, that's actually what's weird about it, is in some ways it's really authentic, and like, so no, I'm not trying to be different. I'm not trying to, the golden record is not about, oh, it's gold or whatever. It's like, if anything, while that is true, my integrity is gold, okay, that's true, but it's actually just about what I said a minute ago. I don't even think, in my opinion, that the Voyager records were about aliens. In my opinion, they were kind of, and I've heard other people speak on this, right? I'm not trying to say like this is all my original. I've heard other people mention this as well, that, they felt like it was almost more of like, this is about humanity. And that's kind of an important way to say it, I think, and probably a good stopping point for the night, since I do have a couple things. But like this, the Voyager record is about humanity in some ways, not even really just necessarily in some ways, because we're sitting down and we're trying to decide, how do you represent humanity? And to be honest with you, I'm not saying that I'm representing humanity at all. It's just symbolism, and it's, artistic inspiration, and it always has been. And, there was some artistic inspiration. Sure. Okay. I've not, had many, quote, UFO sightings in my lifetime, but there was one that, I was with another witness. And so, no, nobody can say it was mental illness. We were looking at something that was definitely not, balloons or drones or airplanes. And that was part of the artistic inspiration there in a way, definitely. Like, it's basically two amorphous blobs of light that were morphing into one another and then unmorphing, like, that was weird. I'm not gonna lie, but who knows? It could have been some kind of balloon that just we didn't understand, or I'm not, it could have been technology. It could have been, really, that's what's so complicated about UFOs, is just that, like, technology is always on the edge of our understanding. And to be honest with you, like, some things just seem like magic to us, kind of like the music I make. In some ways, some people think it's like like almost like, oh my gosh, where is it coming from? But like, no, it's coming straight from my heart. Like, I don't know how else to say it. When I say there you go, now you born the Voyager, like I wasn't really, being quote prophetic or thinking about the future that much, but I was just making sound, and that's what art is. Like, I'm making sound, and I'm okay. I like the sound of that, and like, um, there's usually it's about rhyme, it's about melody, and that's what I think is so strange is that I'll be honest, in my opinion, there's a lot of insecurity involved in this. And from statements made from the very beginning, there's really no one that can say that it was not a culture war because that's the thing. I'm not some huge musician. That's what's so weird. They literally illegally stole this from me. And then they wanted to act like, oh yeah, no, you're just like a music guy or like a special artist or like you want to be a big old influencer. And like, no, I don't. I have the most humble, intent with everything I do. Like, I care about encouraging other people. Like, I want, to be a person out there that's always telling other people that, like we respect one another and we want, at the end of the day, like when we're seeing somebody being, well, tortured through felony crime, that's when you stand up and you say, no, that's wrong. You don't pile onto that and torture them more, to be clear. That is the improper response, objectively. But, for me, it's just like, I don't know, now, I don't mean I don't know if I'm going to, like now I know that I'm going to get a law degree. Because to be honest, it's not just not okay. It's not just not okay. Now I'm going to get a law degree. And, when I say now you're born the Voyager, like at the time, to be honest, like it was just words. It really was just words. But I guess in a way, working with logic and realizing that I had this capacity for music that I didn't necessarily understand before, maybe that's part of what I felt at the time, right? It's like, wow, I don't really mean this literally. If there is any, like deeper meaning, is like, man, I really like this tool. I'm good with technology and it's perfect for me because no, you can't just sit down at a computer. It's not, that's what people act like, with Apache, for example. People, like he's writing music that he's then having a symphony play and it's a part of his albums, or orchestra, right? But like, really, that was what was so complicated for me is that I love that kind of stuff and I love anyone that wants to work together. But that was really being cast out of like, okay, we're going to violate your privacy, but we're going to lie to your face about it. And in doing so, we're giving criminal psychopaths an open door to frame you for violent crime, which is what they literally did in real life. And then we wanted to sit around and say like, no, you can't tell the truth about that. It's like, wait a minute. Yes, I can, because, I was saying repeatedly, this is not safe. Not safe, not safe, danger, 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 really, like these people are not to be trusted. I understand it seems like somebody's doing something nice and I appreciate that. That was what's so complicated for me. We can't ever leave someone on, cast out. We've allowed perjury. We've allowed lies with reckless abandon already to occur. We don't get to then cast them out and be like, no, you're on the outside, the one-way mirror. We're all going to stare at you and ignore everything you say. And that when you're being tortured by us, implementing the one-way mirror, like that's what I'm saying is kind of not okay. But I don't really want to talk about it that much. However, I sort of do have to talk about it. And then I had to investigate people legally. And that's the thing. I already sort of had context that other people didn't have about this organization. So for them to kind of do what they did here, it's actually, well, that's the thing. These people have not been decent to me. They're not my friends. I don't know how else to say that. They're not good people. They sat around torturing me relentlessly. And then they wanted to act like I owed them when they actually committed felony crime from the beginning to set up the whole situation, including perjury. It's like, well, okay, wait a second. You allowed this first. You don't get to come along and be like, no, you owe us because we framed you. And then that's the thing. If it were, it's not even making any better if it were just the perjury, but it was never just the perjury. It was crimes on my internet, and then it was other crimes that were committed. I'll be honest now, in retrospect, and with all the information I have, committed consciously with the intent to frame me, which is not okay. That means that they're willing to victimize innocent people. And again, I emphasize what's complicated. This organization owns the DEA. That means they're willing to victimize innocent Americans and innocent Texans in order to try to say that I am a criminal when they know for an absolute fact that I'm not. And they have no plausible deniability about that.
especially now after everything I've been publishing to the whole world, when a lot of people in this world were already aware. So I'm going to cut it off there because I am so tired, and I do have a couple things to finish before I go to bed. But really, I appreciate anybody that, hops in here. I'm sorry, it's going to be a bizarre experience, and there's some things that I actually can't explain, like some of what happened earlier. But I hope you have a great night, and thanks for joining. I'll be back on tomorrow.